Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, of course, we have another beer that I'm filming for you here in Bamberg in Franconia in northern Bavaria in Germany, and we've got quite a special one today. So we're going to return to one of the very famous Bamberg breweries, and this beer that I'm going to review for you today is actually the strongest beer that you can get a hold of here in Bamberg. So we're going to return to Brauerei Fässla, which is basically translates into English as the Dwarf Brewery, and this is why they have the dwarf on all of their labels, and we're having a taste of the Bambergator. So this guy comes in at 8.5%, and I'm not sure whether to expect a kind of regular Bock from this one, just a very strong regular Bock, or whether this guy will be more along the lines of a Doppelbock. I'm really not sure what to expect from this one. This is the strongest beer you can get in Bamberg. This is their Bock beer, and of course I'm filming this review for you at the very end of October in Bamberg, and this of course is when the sort of time when the breweries are starting to release all their sort of seasonal Bock beers, so it's a very good time actually to come to Bamberg in terms of beer. The city does look prettier in the summer, but if you want some good beer, you know, October is a fairly good time to come. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brauerei Fässla before. Hopefully I can add some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the German beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then about Brauerei Fässla. So Brauerei Fässla can be found on Königstrasse, not too far from the Hauptbahnhof in Bamberg. It's actually right across the road from Brauerei Spezial, so you can go to one and then go to the other, of course, and the beers in both breweries are very, very good. I actually meant to buy a glass from Brauerei Fässla when I was in there the other day. I bought this bottle of beer from the brewery, but I was, I'd had a few too many beers and I forgot to ask for a glass, but I did when I was a little bit earlier. We went to Spezial first, which is why I remembered to get the glass from them. But these guys, of course, are quite near the canal, which is a very pretty part of the city. You've also got the Kleines Venezia there, which is beautiful in the summer actually. But Fässla, as I mentioned to you earlier, in German means dwarf, and this is why the brewery have dwarf as their symbol. So the name of this brewery literally is the Dwarf Brewery. But the Fässla Brewery was founded back in 1649 by butcher and brewer Hans Lauer, and this was the first year of peace actually after the 30 Years' War. But their brewery building facade is very typical of the 1950s when beer would be delivered by horse and cart, and apparently you could tell this because of the size of the entrance doors, which would lead to the covered courtyard, which is called the Schwem. And the Schwem is something that is actually a little bit funny. There's a little bit of a joke that surrounds the Schwem actually. So this area isn't actually in the pub, and they like to make jokes that the businessmen can come and have a beer or two on the way home from work, and if their wives ask them if they went to the pub, they can say that they haven't actually been in the pub and they'll still be telling the truth. So the Schwem isn't actually part of the Brauhaus itself, they like to say. But the walls in the Schwem have been painted with two murals, and this is one that shows the historical town centre of Bamberg, and the other which shows the historical brewing process that they've always used there. But there's a record that this brewery passed over to the brewer Paul Lutz back in 1898, and since 1986 the brewing and malting family Kalb have actually ran this business. The current boss of the business is actually Roland Kalb, and today the brewery has an output of around 33,000 hectolitres, which makes it the second largest brewery here in Bamberg. So they've got the Fässla Keller, which is over to the east a little bit of the train station, if I remember correctly. That's really pretty as well, definitely worth a visit. But then they've got their old kind of Brauhaus pub, if you like, which is right next to, or right across the road from the Spezi one. So, if you want to go there, there's the Spezi Keller as well. You've got a hell of a lot of good places that you can go here in Bamberg. So, come to this city. The Germans, of course, are very, very friendly. They love Scottish people like me for some reason. But yeah, very, very friendly people in this region of Germany. It's one of the places that was largely untouched during the Second World War as well, so here you can kind of see the real original Germany, if that makes sense. But yeah, Fässla Brewery is one that you definitely want to check out. One of the traditional Bamberg breweries, and of course really internationally everyone knows Schlenkerla, but you've got the likes of Fässla, Greifenklau, You have, yeah, Spezial. You've got a lot of different breweries here that you can check out. Marsbräu as well. There's lots of really good breweries. Weiermann is another one too. But yeah, really excited to try this beer. As I say, this one is a seasonal one. So yeah, you can see the signature on this beer. It's Sebastian Kalb. I'm guessing that is maybe one of the sons of Roland Kalb. He's probably doing the brewing there, but there you can see the famous Fässla dwarf in there, the dwarf brewer, like I said, the Bambergator, and you can see here's the little top labels on this one. So it says here, the strongest beer that you can find in Bamberg, and also you have the little top label here. I'm just watching that you can actually see this on the camera when I bring it up, and there of course is your little dwarf rolling his barrel there on the bottle cap. This of course is one of the trademarks again of the Fässla brewery, and there you can see there is the back of one of their buildings, which is kind of cool. I always like that when they put these little things here. The German beers, you know, they're very traditional, they're very distinctive, but they always, you know, I always like this kind of traditional German looking beer. But a half-litre bottle, this one, as I say, 8.5% ABV. It is a bit of a monster, this beer, I guess, from what I gather. So I'm very curious to see whether this is actually just a very strong Bock beer, or in terms of its flavour profile, is it actually a Doppelbock? So I'm sure we'll find out in just a second. But without further ado then, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. The strongest beer in Bamberg. Nice little bit of a smoky opening there as we open it up. Yeah, I think this, in terms of the aroma you're getting from this one, I think this is probably just a strong single regular Bock beer, if that makes sense. The Doppelbock, yeah, this one's a single Bock, but it's just a very strong single Bock. 8.5% from what I remember is actually stronger than some of the Doppelbocks that you'll find, so I'm very curious about this beer. And of course these these Bock beers and things that they do, I guess this one isn't actually a Märzen, but of course it's released sort of around the kind of Oktoberfest time. A lot of the breweries have these Oktoberfest beers. There was a law in Germany that you couldn't brew, I think from the end of April until late September. You could only brew your beers sort of through the winter months actually, and a lot of the beers were stored in the cellar and then brought out for October when the Oktoberfest was going on. The Oktoberfest of course originated because one of the German, or one of the Bavarian princesses got married, and then the Duke or the King or whatever had a big party in Munich, and then it was just repeated every year after that. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a really nice. This one's actually quite a coppery colour. I think copper is a sort of good descriptor for the colour of this beer. It looks very, very nice. I think, yeah, copper. I'm going to go with copper for the descriptor of the colour of this beer. There's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy, very slight fawn coloured head to this one. Quite a few big bubbles sticking towards the bottom of the glass there, and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But in terms of a Bock beer, you know, it looks pretty much as you would expect, although some of the Bock beers I've seen have been a little bit lighter in colour in this one. But when this one is, you know, 8.5%, it's going to have a higher malt content in it, so it's not surprising, of course, that's a little bit darker. So yeah, pretty much looks exactly as you would expect from one of these Bock beers. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see this beer is crystal clear, of course. But yeah, looks very, very nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, yeah. So, by no means is this beer going to blow the head off you in terms of aroma. Again, and I said the same about the other sort of traditional beers that I have. German traditional beer, you know, it doesn't tend to blow you away in terms of aroma. It's all about how these flavours and things blend together. And again, this beer is sort of reflecting that. You can't really say my stereotype. It's kind of reflecting my statement, at least in my opinion. So with this beer, you've got a lovely kind of bready base to this one. It's got a little bit of an almost... It's got a little bit of a kind of caramelly note in there. You can definitely pick up a slightly sweet caramel from this one. It's almost a little bit toasted as well, a little bit of a toasted brown sugar, and you can pick up some of these biscuity notes, or cookie as the Americans would call them. It reminds me of course of the McVitie's digestives that we eat back home in Scotland actually. So it's got a very nice bready, biscuity, caramelly malt base to it, this beer, and of course with it being slightly higher in alcohol content, that is kind of what you would expect. And the hoppy side of things, there's a little touch of earthiness there. Of course, it's got these typical noble hop qualities to it. A little bit of a sweet earthiness in there, a little touch of floral character as well, and some nice a nice little bit of a grassy smoothness to it as well. I think there's a little touch of there's a little tiny touch of a very slight candied red fruit in there, and of course you're going to get that when the alcohol content of the beer is so high actually. So for me, this one's got a little bit of an almost like sultana-y note to it, like sultanas raisins, something like that, a little bit of a candied red fruit. Maybe there's a little bit of an apricot in there as well, and of course you've got a little bit of that typical grassy citrus, especially when you sugar the beer up a little bit. When you just swiggle it round a little bit like this, you start to get a little bit more of a fruity note from it. I'd say apricot's a little bit of a kind of sultana note, and maybe a little bit of a raisiny, almost berryish note coming out of this beer, which is quite interesting actually. So as I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. This one has a nice little bit of fruitiness to it, good in terms of maltiness, and overall I would say this beer leans towards the fruity, malty side of things, which to be honest is kind of expected when it's a beer of such high alcohol content. But without further ado then, let's have a taste of this one. So this one is the Bambergator, the strongest beer that you can find in Bamberg, an 8.5% Bock beer from Brauerei Fässla on Königstrasse here in Bamberg, Northern Franconia, Bavaria, Germany. So let's get stuck in. Slange, Skål, Prost. Yeah, that's a nice beer, this one. I mean, for 8.5%, that is ridiculously easy to drink. You would never guess that this beer is 8.5%, but then again, you know, the beers from Germany that I've had that have been that strength, they are the, you know, usually it's the Doppelbocks. And this beer, to me, it just tastes like a regular sort of single Bock beer. When I lived in Heidelberg, I used to love drinking the Heidelberger Bock. There was one of the bars you could go to and you could drink a Heidelberger Bock for €1. And you know, we got stupidly drunk on these things. But the Bock beer, the single Bock beer, it's not one that I review all that often because you can't really get the single Bocks in Sweden or in Scotland. So when you come to Germany, it's one of these ones you just have to have a go at them. But yeah, this is nice. I mean, it's got the sort of caramelly notes that I would like from the Dunkel. My favourite German beer styles, of course, it's the Dunkel and the Doppelbock. I love the darker German beers, and of course I do like a good Helles as well. For me, this one has the drinkability of the Helles, but it's got some of the, it's almost, to me, the Bock beer, it is almost a little bit like, it's got the more malt base of a Helles, it's got a more bready malt base to it, but it's got some of the caramel that you would want from the Dunkel as well, so it kind of combines the best of both worlds for me. So this is why I enjoy these Bock beers. It's almost a little bit like a blend of to me, and the flavour profile is almost a little bit like a blend of a Helles and a Dunkel, and then they put the alcohol content on steroids a little bit in this one. So this is for me, this is quite a nice beer. I do like this. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, of course. But you can imagine, once they have their Bock beer Abstrib, the sort of Bock beer party at this brewery, I can imagine there's a few German men and women who will go to work the next day and wish they'd stayed home sick, because, you know, this beer, for 8.5%, it's ridiculously easy to drink. But let's try and break the flavour of this one down a little bit. So you have that nice bready malt base there, that just blankets the middle of your palate. This one has a little bit of that kind of brown bready presence that I talk about sometimes with the Dunkel beers. It's got that lovely German smooth bready malt base to it. On top of that, you can feel there's a little bit of a grainy character to this one. As you go further and further into the aftertaste, you start to get a little bit of the kind of grainy qualities coming out of this beer. Right in the centre of your palate though, you've got a nice sort of slightly syrupy caramel note there. It's got a good balance. The caramelly brown sugar notes in this one for me have a good balance between the sort of roasty side of things, a little bit of a roasty toasty note, but they've also got a little bit of that sweetness there, and that covers the alcohol quite well. You can taste though with this beer that it is a little bit boozy just because of the way these kind of caramelly flavours are. And for me, as you come further forward on the palate, this one, there is a little touch of a very slight woodier flavour to this one. You can feel that the beer is just a little bit woody towards the front of the palate there, but I do like that. And of course you're going to get things like this, as I say, when the beer is 8.5%. This, you know, compared to the traditional German beers, this one is a little bit of a monster. You have to say that about it. But yeah, again, it's one of these beers, and I've repeated this a few times with the German beers, it's all about how these flavours blend together, and this one for me just goes together very, very well. In terms of the hoppy side of the beer then, back corners of the palate, you've got that a little bit of that typical sweet earthiness that you expect of the German noble hops, and then as you come kind of further forward along the sides of your palate, that earthiness just smooths out a little bit. There's maybe a little touch of a herbal quality there, but then when you get to the front corners of the palate, it's a little bit slightly spicy. There's just a little bit of that floral aromatic spice to this one. Then round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and then behind the front curve of the tongue, of course, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And yeah, again for me, the fruity esters in this one are really nice. When you go further into the aftertaste, it's interesting because for me there's a sort of peachy, apricot-y kind of thing to this one, and the fruity notes that you get out of this beer, it's a little bit boozy. It's almost got a little bit like of a kind of alcoholic cake vibe to it, this beer, in some ways. So for me, there's a sort of sultana-y flavour to this one. It's got a bit of a cakey, sultana-y fruitcake sort of thing to it. There's a little bit of a candied red fruit in there as well. There's a little touch, as I always say, you get those little heart-shaped sweets in Haribo Star Mix, and the kind of candied red fruits that you're getting out of this beer do remind me of that a little bit. But for me, it's a sultana note. There's a little touch of apricot or something in there, and the fruity notes also. It's almost like a fruit cake kind of flavour that you get out of this one. So yeah, I like how everything in this beer just goes together. But you know, 8.5%, I can actually feel a little bit now, a little bit of a buzz coming on with this beer, because it is, you know, it's pretty strong actually. But this one, in terms of the style, because I commented on this at the start, this one is definitely a single bock beer. It's definitely not a Doppelbock, it's definitely a single bock beer, but just a very strong single bock beer. But it has everything you would expect of the style, and this is cool because for me at least, I don't get to review all that many of this kind of beer, but for me, very, very nice beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, but you know, I just wouldn't drink too many of them. 8.5%, and when the beer is this easily drinkable, is a little bit dangerous. I will definitely say that about this. But when you go into the aftertaste of this one, the bready notes start to come out a little bit more. Some of the graininess is lingering there, sweeter caramel, and of course you've got a little bit of hoppy bitterness and some of that fruity note as well. This is one of these beers where it's all about how the different flavours combine together. In terms of the mouthfeel, definitely a mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is quite smooth on this one. The mouthfeel overall, I would say, is a little bit oily, which is nice. It suits the booziness that this beer has. Good little bit of bitterness to this one. There is a little bit of an IBU to the beer, maybe, again, I think about 30 in this one. It's not going to blow your head off in terms of IBUs, this beer. Lovely balance in the malt base. As I say, a little bit of that kind of slightly brownish German brown bread flavour to this beer. Lovely kind of caramel notes. It's the brown sugar notes for me that make this beer stand out a little bit. It covers the alcohol pretty well, I would say. And that's what makes this beer dangerously drinkable. And then you've got a little bit of that nice kind of fruity note to this one. Like I was saying, apricots, sultanas, a little bit of candied red fruit in there as well. But overall, a very, very nice beer. And as I say, in terms of a style, this one is definitely a single bock, but just a very strong single bock. So just be aware when you drink this one, it will go to your head a little bit. But yeah, lovely, lovely beer, this one. And I'm really glad that I was able to review it for you here on the channel. I'm glad that I was able to come to Bamberg and visit Daniel at this time of the year in particular. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So this one was the Bambergator, the Bock beer, the 8.5% Bock beer from Brauerei Fässla on Königstrasse here in Bamberg in Franconia in northern Bavaria, Germany. A lovely, lovely beer, this one. A very special beer to be able to review this seasonal one for you at this time. But once again, let's leave it at that. Thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brauerei Fässla. Of course, you can check out my other review of the lager beer. Hopefully I can review some of the other ones in the fairly near future. But thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. This is the Bambergator, an 8.5% Bock beer, the strongest beer that you can find here in Bamberg in Franconia, and it is just very, very nice. It's all about how these flavours blend together. But until the next time, slange just now, I'll catch you guys very soon. Skål, Prost.